as well. And welcome to another edition of the Double A team. Thanks for joining us tonight. I am Steve Negishi. Normally, my co-host Ken Fang will be the one doing the opening intro, but unfortunately, he is off to tonight for a health issue, which is nothing serious. He just wanted to take time off and be ready for the next show in 2 weeks from tonight. In case if you've been following, Ken's been going through a lot in recent weeks, months. His dog had a health scare, and his aunt and uncle were involved in a church shooting in late May in Laguna Woods, California, if you remember. Thankfully, both of them are doing well. And obviously, Ken has had to deal with that as well. And now he has to deal with his own health issues. So thoughts and prayers, obviously, to him. And hopefully he will be back healthy and ready to go in 2 weeks. So I'm doing solo again, which I have been doing for quite some time in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully all of you are used to it by now. And we thank you for joining us on another edition of the Double A team. Tonight's guest will be Jean-Jacques Taylor. He is a columnist with the Dallas Morning News, writer for The Undefeated. He has his own media company called the JJT Media Group in Dallas, Texas. We're very, very excited to have him because I know him personally. Well, not in a professional manner, but I've met him when I was living in Dallas, Texas. Listened to his radio show on ESPN Dallas, which unfortunately the station went away and switched its format. And he has a great article, which is a cover story of Sports Illustrated for those who still subscribe and read Sports Illustrated or who check out Sports Illustrated on their website. A cover story of Deion Sanders and the rise of HBCU, historical Black college universities. Jacques began his career covering Cowboys with the Dallas Morning News, with the likes of Tim Kalishaw and Ed Werder, the names that I think a lot of you are familiar with, both of them working for ESPN and regularly appears nationally. And he knows Deion very, very well on and off the field. And that relationship that he has with Deion has led to this great story of Deion Sanders' rise in the college football scene, despite not having any coaching experience. And I'm very, very interested to talk to him and really get to know more about the rise of Deion and the impact that he has had on the HBCU and whether HBCU can, he and Jackson State can, put a dent in the recruiting war with the likes of Alabama, Georgia, which is not an easy thing to do in the South, given the wealth of talent that they have to compete with the D1 school that has more cachet and the value. But they made a huge dent in the recruiting world earlier this year when number 2 player Travis Hunter of Swanee, Georgia, ended up flipping from, ironically, Florida State, which is Deion Sanders' alma mater, if you remember, and ended up joining Deion Sanders at Jackson State, which obviously ruffled the feathers the wrong way to people like Nick Saban and other college coaches that obviously didn't seem amused about losing a top recruit to HBCU and excuse me. Sorry, I had a little bit of a phlegm there, but it will be interesting to hear JJT's story, and he'll be joining us in a few minutes. And also, the second guest tonight is AJ Perez, the senior reporter for Front Office Sports. Very interested to know more about the what kind of website the Front Office Sports is about. AJ has been covering a lot of stories about the Washington Commanders and their dysfunctionality on and off the field. Their defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio, made real headlines off the over the weekend, if you remember, him saying that the Jan 6 insurrection was nothing more than a dust-up. He ended up having to offer a half-ass apology, and like many, ended up deleting his Twitter the day after, or at least yesterday. So, as a Bears fan, we all get frustrated with the dysfunctionality of the McCaskey family. So at least we can look at the Commanders, formerly the football team, and the Redskins, and see what the hell is happening with the Washington Commanders and so on and so forth. Alrighty, we are welcome. It looks like our first guest is here, columnist for the Dallas Morning News, undefeated SI cover story, and now the president of his own media company, Mr. Jean-Jacques Taylor, aka JJT. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's happening, man?
Oh, I think you're muted. Do you have your microphone on, sir? Uh-oh. Hold on. Uh-oh. Sorry for the technical glitch there, folks. All right, let's try it again. JJT, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. One second. Let's see. Can you hear us? Oh, I think you have a muted sign over next to your name, sir.
Right.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
I'm not sure we can hear him fully. Jean, can you count down? Give me a 10, 9, 8.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, for some reason it's muted. We can only hear a whisper of what you're saying. Do you have? Are you using your computer microphone?
Yeah, hold up. I'll go get my snowball.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, great start to the show, Stephen. We've got tornado warnings here in Chicago.
Yes. In case you're wondering, all those in the Chicago area, and he told me about I see Foster's telling us, obviously he lives in the area, so he can vouch for that. There is a tornado warning in the Chicago area, correct, Aldo?
That is correct. It is hitting the northwest suburbs and north suburbs and headed towards Wrigley Field. They could use some hitting, so tornado will help get their offense. All right, Jean-Jacques, give us a testing there. It's the same. It's weird.
Hold on a second.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Yeah, that's not working.
Let me get out and see if I can get back in.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're working with a little bit of a technical difficulties here, but folks, appreciate your patience. JJT will be back with us just shortly.
Well, while he's off, Stephen, what can we talk about regarding Chicago sports? What's been on your mind that's been really irritating you?
Well, the Cubs have been really irritating. I think a lot of us, And I was going to bring it up probably at the end of the show, but I'm just going to blurt it out, before JJD comes out. I think yesterday's performance kind of pretty much signaled the end of 2022 season officially.
Mhm.
Having Frank Schwindel pitch for the second time this year is not a great sign. And then what bothers me the most about not just the game itself, but I think a lot of people have been also commenting on this, is that the release of Clint Frazier, an outfielder who was designated for assignment, but yet they still have, Jason Hayward and others who are still manning the roster spot that doesn't really make sense and really contradicts what the Cubs are trying to do, at least with this year.
Mhm.
They said that they were going to compete. Or they're ready to compete, and then all they did was add Stroman and Suzuki, who neither of them have been making impact yet so far. Stroman has been in and out of the DL. He had COVID. Suzuki unfortunately was ready to come off the IL. I'm sorry, with the ring finger injury, but it looked like he probably won't be back until the end of the month, or even perhaps at the near the All-Star break at this point.
Mhm.
According to some reports, and you signed those two players, and then you put together a bunch of 3A, 4A, rosters, with occupied by the guys like Simmons and VR, and the bunch of guys that really there are a couple of others who have since been released, Hermosillo and among others, that really has not done jack squat with the team when they were playing.
Mhm.
And then I don't know the hesitation of releasing Jason Hayward at this point. Look, I don't think Clint Frazier is going to be like a world beater. Unfortunately, his season had been marred by injury himself, and he just got back from the IL before he was released. And if you remember, he was actually a member of the Yankees, and he was actually released during that series. I don't remember him even playing, because he was talking about how he's in a much better spot without having to deal with the facial hair and the appearance issue that the Yankees are very, very strict about. Whereas in the Cubs, that was not the case. And then he's no longer with the team, and yet you still have Jason Hayward occupying the spot. So I'm just like what I just did. I'm scratching my head as to what the Cubs are really trying to do. Where they're going. It's pretty much inevitable that they're going to trade off Contreras, even though they settled the arbitration dispute this last week.
Mhm.
Their pitching is just abhorrent. Both starting pitching wise and the relievers. They're really, really stretching it thin. So I know the minor league system is, doing its job, but at this point, I'm just pretty much, I think a lot of fans are pretty much out of it. I wouldn't be shocked to see more empty seats at the Wrigley Field as a protest against the Ricketts, for their, effort. We talked about this in our show maybe a month or so ago, or even 2 months, when the Ricketts were trying to team up to buy Chelsea, the Premier League team.
Mhm.
And, for some reason, I think the Ricketts, Tom in particular, who's the front and center of in all of the Cubs and the involvement to buy Chelsea,
Mhm.
is using somebody else's money. Tom is not the one who made the money. He's obviously using his father Joe, who founded the TD, Waterhouse, which is an online trading brokerage firm, to buy the Cubs, and he was also trying to buy Chelsea, teaming up with a local billionaire fund investor, Ken Griffith. So I'm just really curious to know where Tom Ricketts are and where he's heading. Oh, look like JJT's back. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, he's always been able to hear us. We just can't hear him. We still can't.
Okay. Let's see.
I
Do you
don't have
any-
a on my end.
Mhm.
Can you use your phone, Jean-Jacques? Yeah, just use the same link and the phone should work fine.
Yeah. All right. Good. So we're gonna try and stretch out a little bit with AJ as well, but I'm gonna make a phone call to AJ and let him know that we're a little bit stretched in. Or do you want me to do that?
No, I'll take care of that. I'll send them an email. Go
All
ahead.
right.
Go ahead and talk about more of the Cubs.
Okay. So it's basically where the Cubs are heading. At least this year, you don't get to see the Cubs regularly like you used to on WGN if you're from the Chicago or somewhere in the Midwest area where you get WGN. Marquee. To be honest, I don't know where Marquee is, and even I think local fans are probably scratching their head about where to find Marquee because of the cable dispute at one point maybe did not allow you to watch the game. Oh, JJT, you're on the phone. Can you hear us now?
Yep. Looks like.
All right.
Now.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very sorry that you had to go through all of this. But
No worries. All good.
Good. All right. Thank you so much, folks. Without further ado, Mr. Sexy himself, Jean-Jacques Taylor, columnist with the Dallas Morning News, undefeated, and his own media company, JJT Media Group. Thank you so much for doing this tonight.
Hey, my pleasure, Steve.
Hey, I know JJT. We met several times at a remote when you were doing a show in Dallas, Fort Worth for several times. I don't know if you remember,
No, but don't take it personally.
No, I get it. But anyway,
I remember you on Twitter more.
Yes. I've reached out to you on Twitter. You do a podcast, which we will plug it up later during the show. But I reached out to you on the Twitters, and you've been very, very kind in responding. And I do have a real connection with you because I enjoy listening to you as well as your writing and your work as well.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Thank you so much. All right, let's get to the business. You recently had a feature article on SI on Deion Sanders and the rise of HBCU. For those of you who are not familiar with the term HBCU, it stands for Historic Black College and Universities. You've been covering Deion Sanders for quite a while, correct? You've been covering him since you were the beat writer for the Dallas Cowboys with the Dallas Morning News, correct?
Yeah, started covering Deion in 1995 when he showed up in Dallas. And, up until he left after the 99 season. But because he lived in Dallas, I maintained a relationship with him. And then what happened was he had a football that he used to do literally all summer. And
right.
My son went to his camp for a couple of years. And when I say, Deion ran the camp, when I dropped my dude off a lot of times at 7 o'clock, Deion would be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go in and talk him up for a few minutes or whatever. And when I pick him up at, 4 or 5 o'clock, Deion would still be there. And so I'd talk him up a little bit more. And, this went on for years. And a couple of different times he had projects that he wanted me to do. So he'd pay me for those. And I'd do those kind of projects for him. And it's just kind of evolved over time. And when he got this job, ironically enough, I think the news was out that he had gotten hired. And I don't think I did anything with it. But that's what got the excitement going from ESPN's perspective. And so they asked me if I could get him for an interview. Mm-hmm. I said, I think so, but I haven't talked to him in a minute. So let me see. And ironically, whatever they asked me to do that, he was the offensive coordinator at Trinity Christian Cedar Hill, kind of like the de facto head coach, but he was certainly the offensive coordinator.
Right.
And they happened to be playing my son's team a couple weeks after he had agreed to be Jackson State's coach. And so I said, I told ESPN, I don't know if he wants to talk or not, but his team is playing my son's team. And so I will definitely see him on this day at this time. Then it'll just be a matter of whether he wants to do something or not. So I saw him, and we chopped it up, and he was great. And he was like, Yeah, hit me up. I got. Don't worry about it. And we did something on that, and it just kind of progressed from there, man. Until this season coming up, they were like, "We loved what you did during the COVID shortened season. Why don't
Hmm.
you just cover them this year for us, and bring a different kind of flavor to it, and write about everything that's going on with the school and the city and the university, not just the wins and the losses."
Yeah. You were writing the article chronicling Dion's coaching for the undefeated, correct?
Well, we call it Anscape now.
Oh, okay, okay.
It changed about 2 months ago, so we got to get it up. It's Anscape, but yeah, Anscape
It was
formerly the
formerly
undefeated.
undefeated. Okay, my apologies for
No
that.
worries.
You had to travel from. I remember listening to your podcast. You always chronicling about traveling from Dallas to Jackson and then back, and must have been a hell of a schedule driving back and forth just to. And then also you covered the Cowboys as well. During the football season. What is it like to drive from Dallas to Jackson and then be back? That's a hell of a schedule for you to deal with, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was a little different this year. Matter of fact, I was trying to figure out today. I spent some time trying to figure out how I was going to manage logistics this upcoming season. Last year was kind of crazy because I did radio. I told you my son played for a local team. It's called DeSoto High School.
Right. That's Von Miller is a famous alum there.
There you go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's a big time football program.
Yes, sir.
And this year was the first year they had a radio broadcast. So they broadcast all the games. And so they asked me to participate on the broadcast as a sideline reporter. So I was basically doing my son's games on Friday night as a broadcast reporter, doing Dion on Saturday, and then doing the Cowboys on Sunday.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't so bad because with the COVID restrictions,
I
didn't have to go to the Cowboys games because they didn't allow you in the press box.
Oh, okay.
So I was watching those games at home, and for what I had to do, it really wasn't that bad. The bad part was if the games, high school football, that's normally I wouldn't get home till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then a lot of times I might have to get up and at the crack of dawn and get to Jackson, which is about a 5.5 to 6 hour drive from Dallas. So that was a little shady a couple times. But man, ain't nobody feeling sorry for you if your job is covering sports. That's just what it comes with. And that was just all part of the process.
Oh, yeah. We're talking with Jean-Jacques Taylor of columnist with the Dallas Morning News, and he recently put out a very, very good article about Deion Sanders and the rise of HBCU football. Were you surprised he took the job?
Not really. I mean, he'd been trying to get into college coaching for several years. He had interviewed with Arkansas. He'd interviewed or had some conversations with Florida State. He let it known that he wanted to be a coach, so that didn't surprise me. And when you're trying to break in, sometimes you got to go where you can go, and it was a good opportunity for him because at that particular time, obviously, we're still talking about George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. And, it was kind of ripe to go to an HBCU because there's a lot of groundswell for sending people there, sending kids there. And so if you're going to go to an HBCU and have an opportunity to succeed, then actually felt like a pretty good time to do it. So I wasn't that surprised. I mean, basically, he'd been coaching since he retired.
Right, I remember the story about him coaching in the Trinity and the program that was actually kind of was in the local news for probably for like in trouble or something like that. But obviously, that better than anybody else. But
so he'd been coaching for a while. So the fact that he finally got an opportunity to decide to pull the trigger on it, that part alone didn't really surprise me that much.
Mm-hmm. And I think what really struck many people, that I think when people started to take him seriously was when his own son, Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who flipped from Florida Atlantic to go to his father, And then this year in the recruiting war, the number 2 recruit, Travis Hunter, switched from, ironically, Deion's alma mater, FSU, to go to Jackson State. Do you know the reasoning behind, like, how in the world the number 2 kid who could go anywhere and ended up going to Jackson State? Was it the NIL deal, or was there something that we need to know about?
Well, at one level, it really wasn't all that complicated. He's a guy, you have to ask yourself first, why did he want to go to Florida State? All right, he grew up in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to go to Florida State because Deion Sanders was his favorite player of all time. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to go emulate Deion at Florida State and hopefully become the next Deion, if that's something that anybody could ever do.
Yes, sir.
So now I don't know all the details, but at some point along the way, Florida State got crossways with his mother. And his mother kind of said, hey, I'd probably like for you to go anywhere but Florida State.
Oh, really?
So once she kind of made that known, or they had that conversation or whatever, whenever Florida State wasn't part of the equation,
mm-hmm. Wow.
Then, okay, where am I going to go? I can still go wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
But he had this good relationship with Deion. Deion mm-hmm. was his favorite player. He wants to be a cornerback. Mm-hmm. Where can I best fit to go get prepped for the National Football League? It's probably Deion Sanders. Uh-huh. There's not a better cornerback. There's not a guy who'll be more honest with me. And, while he's trying to do all this, they're sending pictures of bass fish to each other because they both love bass fishing. Mm-hmm. So they're building a relationship based on the love of football, also their love of fishing, and also this guy's quest to be great, because he's not. I've talked to him a couple times now. He's not a regular 18-year-old. And whenever I'm talking about him, give this example. I was talking to him at one point, actually the very first time I spoke to him, and he was naming. I can't remember how we got on this, but he was like, I'm a really good listener, so you don't have to tell me things twice. Well, most 18-year-olds don't understand that listening is one of the best traits and qualities you can have. Right. And so when he said that, I was like, okay, he's a different kind of dude. And you talk to people out at Jackson State, and almost everybody verbatim says he's just different. He's got an it factor about him. He's got a charisma to him. And he's just a different kind of cat. So, yeah, he has a couple NIL deals. I've been told that they're worth less than $250,000. I'm sure he'll get more the better he plays. Sure. But hey, that ain't against the rules, bro. So now they said they haven't paid him. They don't have to lie about it, because there's nothing that says you can't pay him. Look at Texas A&M. Yeah. I mean, they pay for all their guys. Texas is playing this offensive lineman reportedly $50,000. Ryan Day at Ohio State said, I need $13 million to keep my team intact. I mean, so if they were paying him, who cares? It's not a big deal. Exactly. But they're not. And so, that he just made a choice for him. I don't know how many other 5-star guys would do that, but it was the right decision for him. And we'll see how it works out for him.
Yeah, without a doubt. I live in Columbus area, so I know the backstory about Ryan Day wanting at least $13 million to the local business in order to be competitive in the NIL deals. I know the deal. Well, not the deal. I'm sorry. The Hunter recruiting thing really ruffled Nick Saban the wrong way. Obviously, he and Deion has done commercials with Affleck. There's a strong relationship there. And then Nick Saban goes on and pick a fight with Jimbo Fisher, who just referred to having the number 1 recruiting class with all the offensive linemen making 50 G's and stuff like that. Is this some sort of the reckoning in college football where HBCU kids are, becoming more social and socially aware, with what's going on in the world today, and then that they feel more comfortable going to places like, HBCUs run by Deion rather than going to, traditional colleges, or am I overreading too much into that?
I mean, I think they're really just everybody's got to make their own individual choice. I think what happens is, what do kids want to do? They want to play for national championships. They want to get to the league. If you can help me get to the league, I don't really care where you are, I'll go. And so if they think Deion can help them get to the league by maximizing their talent, by teaching them how to play, by helping them become the best possible player they can become, then other guys will go there. If they don't think that, then they won't go. And so, this was his first full season.
Right.
And he sent a kid named James Houston to the Detroit Lions. Well, James Houston transferred from Florida, linebacker, defensive lineman, kind of a tweener, 6'1", 240 pounds. I think he ended up with 16 and a half sacks, 24 and a half tackle for loss, and 7 forced fumbles. And if he had been 2 inches taller, he probably would have been a second or third round pick, if not a first round pick. But he's 2 inches shorter at 6'1", and so he lasted to the 7th round or the 6th round. My point being, if these guys develop and they dominate, then they're going to get drafted. And as more of them get drafted, then more will show up. And so, that's just the way it works. If Travis Hunter has a kind of year that most people expect him to have on offense and defense, then nobody's going to be surprised if some wide receiver cornerback who's a 5-star, 4-star next year comes to Jackson State to play for Deion.
Oh, without a doubt. And we're talking with JJT, Jean-Jacques Taylor, columnist with the Dallas Morning News, and also his own podcast, Jam Session, which can be heard on Spotify and Apple Podcast, which I listen to regularly and enjoy, which is why I have him on tonight on the AA team tonight. I wanted to close out the Deion question with this one. I'm curious to know, how long do you think he's going to coach at Jackson State? Because eventually his star is going to rise, and FSU, his alma mater, is struggling. At some point, FSU is going to throw some money and say, "Hey, I want you to help revive the program." Or if Jerry Jones, who so much covering the Cowboys, if he's desperate and maybe crazy things have happened before, if Jerry Jones says, "Hey, I want you to help transform the Cowboys," someone like Deion probably have a hard time saying no. What do you think is going to be the end game for Deion's coaching career? Where going forward?
You lost him.
I don't know. Maybe he got a phone call or something, but we'll wait for the JJT to come back and try and wrap it up before we head out. But so far,
well, it's an interesting conversation that you guys are having. These historically black college universities, there is a lot of, from all of my reading, there appears to be a lot of social awareness going on among a lot of players. And so I think that a lot of them are saying, why make the Alabamas and the Notre Dames richer and richer? Let me start helping to build a program that serves my community. So, anyways, JJT's back.
Yeah, man. I don't know what happened. Next thing you know, I was gone. Man, I think Deion is not your typical dude, man. So you can't look at him and talk to him and think about him and like you would typical people, because he's not. He's a really unique cat. And I say that to say, I've asked him this several times. His answer has never changed, and it didn't change, 15, 20 years ago. It's the same answer. We talked about it. I'm getting to where I'm going, but I'm just giving you the background. We talked about this the other day as it relates to a different conversation we were having, and this is basically it. Like, Deion doesn't worry about where am I going. Do I want to go to Florida State? Do I want to go to Ohio State? Do I want some other job? He just doesn't worry about stuff like that. This is what he does. This is what he says. and this is what we talked about literally 3 days ago, which is if you live in a moment, and you dominate your moment, whatever that moment is, you dominate it. You're the best you can possibly be at that moment. Then the opportunities to do other stuff will come. You don't have to worry about this, that, or the other thing. They will show up. Meaning, we were actually talking about something for me because he was talking about the SI story. He said, man, it turned out great. And I was like, well, like we always say, sometimes you get an opportunity.
Yes.
When the opportunity comes, if you body that thing, if you dominate it, if you destroy it, and you do very well, then more opportunities will follow. If you get that up, and you have no idea what those opportunities will be.
Sure.
If you get that opportunity and you mess it up, you screw it up, you don't dominate it, maybe you get another opportunity, maybe you don't. And so I've kind of adopted the same thing because he's kind of taught me that over the years. And that's a long way of me saying he ain't worried about the future. Because if they go 13-0 this year and win the Celebration Bowl, there will be opportunities to coach other schools.
Sure.
Maybe he'll take those opportunities. Maybe he won't. But the opportunities will be there. And so he doesn't really worry about the future, man. He just stays in the moment, dominate the moment, and then see what the future brings. Guess what? When the future gets here. That keeps him locked in. That keeps him focused. That keeps him doing the best he can do at whatever he's doing at this particular moment. And that's a good approach to take. Now, my personal opinion is that his son is a sophomore.
Right.
So I can see him being there 3 years till Shedeur, and maybe 4 if Shedeur needs a 4th before he's ready for the NFL or before he thinks he's ready for the NFL. I could see if the right job opened itself up and they had an undefeated year and won the Black College Championship, I could see him leaving after the season if it was the right job. The interesting thing about today's college football is with the transfer portal and the transfer rules, if he decides to leave, let me say that so everybody's clear. If he decides to go somewhere, he can certainly take the best players at Jackson State with him.
Right. It could be his son, He is who's a pretty good quarterback.
It could be. So that's just a long way of saying nobody, including Deion, knows what the future holds. The difference is, while the rest of us care and we're speculating about the future, he really doesn't care because he's going to be fine however the future ends up.
Sure. All right, JJT, we're going to close out the interview with about you starting your own media company. You also teach his journalism class at SMU in Dallas. Working outside of, obviously your full-time job. And tell us about how you started your own company. And, when you teach young students, who are just fresh out of high school, and, in today's world where, hot takes and, clicks and likes are something of a, more prevalent and important than ever. What's the most important thing you focus, whether you're teaching the future journalist, as well as when you're still a great writer with such a great story to tell? What's the most important thing you make sure you follow, as well as you want the future journalist students to follow? Any principles, any policies and stuff?
Oh, I think I've taught my class at SMU for I just finished year number 9. And I literally tell them the same thing. I deliver it a little different every year, but it's the same thing. It's what I do, which is number one, you have to be authentic. You literally just have to be yourself, whoever you are. You have to be authentic. And if you're authentic, then people will tend to gravitate towards you, tend to trust you because you're being real. So number one is be authentic and be whoever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is your work got to be good. Like, you know, if your work is good, then everything else falls in line.
Mm-hmm.
If you scream as loud as you can to compensate for your lack of work,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not going to last long. You know, people talk about, I want to be Stephen A. Smith. Okay, that's cool. Stephen A. makes about $10 million a year. If you listen to reports, that's cool. Did you know Stephen A. was one of the best NBA beat writers in the country before he got to ESPN? That he was a columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a badass reporter before he became, quote, Screaming A. Smith. So his foundation has always been, I'm a badass reporter.
Yeah.
And so that's why, he's ascended to the place where he is. Adam Schefter. I've known Adam Schefter for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Why? Because he covered the Broncos. I covered the Cowboys. We used to talk a lot because the teams used to do a lot of business together. Mm-hmm. So why is Adam Schefter where he is now? Because he's a badass reporter.
Right.
He broke a lot of stories. And then he moved into TV. But first, what was he? He was a badass reporter. And so I tell people all the time, you just have to do what you do. You have to find a niche or a niche, whichever you prefer. And then you got to dominate that thing. And if you dominate it, the money will come, the opportunities will come, everything that you're trying to do will come if you dominate those opportunities that you're given by being, number one, a terrific reporter or storyteller or whatever your niche is in the business. I started my company for one reason and one reason only. I got sick and tired of getting laid off. Yeah,
I understand. I got furloughed from work during the pandemic, and a lot of us went through that too. So
now a lot of people have. So I'm gonna say this, man. A lot of my friends have talked about this for a long time. The pandemic was really a reset. Yeah. And as we move out of it, it's clear to me that some people took advantage of the reset and some people didn't. And if you took advantage of the reset, you could really find yourself in a much better spot, even though we all had to go through the pandemic and it was not a pleasurable thing, enjoyable thing to experience. But if you took advantage of it, you could come out better. And so, I ain't asking nobody to throw me a pity party and none of that. I'm just going to speak facts. Yes. The year I got laid off from ESPN, I won 2 national awards for writing. Okay. But I got laid off.
Sure.
I couldn't come to a contract agreement with NBC. I was doing local Cowboys coverage from them.
Yes, I'm familiar.
Dominating the market that I was in terms of writing because I was writing columns and covering the team as an insider. Dominated.
Yes.
They wanted me to take a 50% pay cut. Like, y'all tripping. Really, y'all are tripping.
Yeah.
Had a local radio show on ESPN in Dallas.
Yeah.
Got a new partner, Matt McLaren. That's who I do the podcast with now. And we took the show from 31st, which is dead last, number 1 draft pick, to number 11. We got up to number 11. We had pretty much been told we were going to drive time 3 to 7, which is where the big money is and what everybody aspires to do. And we got laid off probably 6 weeks after that conversation.
Yes, sir.
So 3 times essentially in 4 years was enough for me to go, I'm going to do my own thing. And I had no idea what it was going to look like. And so I created something.
Yeah.
And what I ended up creating is that I write personal stories, which is for people or couples celebrating anniversaries or weddings or Mother's Day, Father's Day, because in my mind, and it's true, everybody has a story.
Yes.
Most people just don't get an opportunity to tell their story. So if you want to tell your dad's story for Father's Day, you call me, you send me an email, and you say, hey, I want to tell my dad's story. I interview you and family members. Maybe I interview your dad. I write you a story, the same quality that you would find in the Dallas Morning News or
Mm-hmm.
Sports Illustrated or Anscape. I put some pictures around it. I frame it. I deliver it. And your dad goes, oh, my God, I've never had anything so great. So, like I said, so I do those types of personal stories. I think you had a shot at my website. You can see them all over my website.
Yes.
And then I have other clients like the Morning News, Anscape, and some others that I write for.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes they have me freelance jobs. Some things are more steady, more consistent. And so that's what my business is. I'm just creating content. I'm telling stories. I'm just telling stories from a different perspective, depending on who the client is. And I've been thrilled by the reception. And that's what happens because I had this conversation with Eric Williams, the former Cowboys right tackle, all pro. I bumped into him today and we were talking. He was asking me what I was doing and I was telling him. And, one of the things I told him is I never had the desire to be a big national star. My whole goal was always to be the king of Dallas. I wouldn't say I reached that, but I'm in the conversation of people who are big, well-known journalists in Dallas.
Yes.
And so when that happens is when you start doing your own thing, because your name has a little bit of cachet to it in the city, you can operate a lot easier than if it didn't have cachet when you're starting a business like this.
Sure.
So I've been blessed and I've been fortunate that I started it in July 2020, so we're coming up on 2 years. It's doing great. It really is. There's some things in the works that will make it even better. Man, I couldn't be happier about the direction of it's going, what I got lined up and how it's going. And I love it because I'm in control of my life.
Sure.
I vacation when I want to vacation. I work when I want to work. I take off when I want to take off. And, man, sometimes bad stuff happens, but if you had the right attitude, the right mentality, you can turn it into a positive.
Well, on that note, JJT, listen, I've enjoyed your work. I lived in Dallas for only a few years, but, I'm actually planning on coming back later in the fall. And we'll continue to listen to your podcast. And I'm assuming you're going to be covering Dion again throughout the football season again this year, correct?
Yeah, that's the plan, man. So I spend
Okay.
a lot of time there. I spend a lot of time with the Cowboys. Those would probably be my two biggest deals in the fall. I got some other stuff in the works, but I got to kind of fit those in around those things.
Awesome. I hope that the fans will continue to read your work. The Deion Sanders journey is a very, very fascinating one. And, I'm really excited to follow, where Deion is going and how you convey his story on your article and paper and print. JJT, I'm so sorry with all the technical difficulties and everything, but we'd love to have you back on. If you want to come back and promote your book or our work or whatever, you can always reach me, and we'd love to have you on again at some point, sir.
Okay. I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck to you.
Have a good one.
Thank you. And with that, we'll take a quick break, and we'll have AJ Perez from the Front Office Sports joining us after a commercial break.
Zim, Joe, Vinny, and Gonzo. Join these White Sox fanatics every Monday night for the South Burbs Hitmen. You're going to be treated to great guests, top analysis, smart debates. South Burbs Hitmen with Zim, Joe, Vinny, and Gonzo. Only on the Barroom Network.
And welcome back to the Double A team. I'm Stephen Nagishi. I'm flying solo tonight. Ken Fang is off tonight for health reasons. But we'll be back hopefully in 2 weeks from tonight for the next episode of the Double A team. We apologize for all the technical glitches and problems that we've had a little bit tonight, but hopefully you enjoyed the conversations of Jean-Jacques Taylor, And if you're interested in following Deion Sanders and his journey this upcoming football season, please follow him on Twitter and also follow him on his work, not just with that SI This Week, but also Unscathed, formerly the Undefeated. All right, the next guest is a senior reporter with the Front Office Sports, which I think a lot of us are probably not yet familiar with. He is a senior reporter who lives in the DC area. Let's welcome in AJ Perez from the Front Office Sports. AJ, I think you have yourself muted there. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm so sorry the interview got a little bit pushed back with the technical difficulties. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Let's just dive in. What is Front Office Sports, and how did the Front Office Sports start?
Oh, so I actually started back in college. Our CEO Adam White and our CFO Russ. They started back in college. They started as basically a kind of a newsletter. That's basically at its core. We're still a newsletter company. But I was part of the hiring process. I was like employee number 10, I think, 2 years ago. And they kind of geared up where we kind of started covering more stuff, more newsletters, more in-depth stories. And now we're up almost 50 employees now and growing. So we have we've been reaching all these benchmarks as far as page views on the site to opens, daily opens into the thousands every day. And we've been consistently growing during the pandemic, which is pretty shocking because I would say I took a break from journalism for several months after USA Today to focus on my personal training business. And this job came about, and I was like just interested because Mike McCarthy, the other senior reporter, and I worked together at USA Today. Mentioning layoffs, that we were both laid off different years. My first go around to USA Today. So that it was kind of that part of JJT thing was pretty good. So I can relate.
Yeah.
So we've all been there. So this is our site. We're going to revamp the site in a few weeks. It look much different. But that's our site now. And so basically we have 3 newsletters every day, every weekday, AM, PM, FOS, and then there's the scoreboard, which is more of a general sports, less sports business focused. And we have newsletters on the weekend as well. We share the writing duties for the Saturday column. You scroll down there, you saw the story Mike McCarthy and I did on just the $1 billion spent over the last about a little less than 2 years. $1 billion spent on on talent, and that's including all the movement we've seen with Monday Night Football. As you see the main art there is Aikman and Buck moving to ESPN, and obviously Amazon getting Al Michaels and ramping up their production because this is the first year they're going to have to do their own producing and shooting the games for Thursday Night Football, where it had been largely NFL Network.
Was this some sort of a perfect storm where, Aikman and Buck were kind of leaning towards leaving, and then ESPN were having their problems with the Monday Night Football crew, ever since Tirico and Gruden left, and, they went through, multiple changes. Was this, what kind of like a perfect storm, people leaving?
Yeah.
And then you had the streaming deal with Amazon and perhaps even Apple, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it was like early on. It looked like Aikman was going to go to Amazon because his contract was up at the end of last season, and Buck still had a year left. So we didn't expect that was kind of a little of a shock that we knew Aikman could have moved. He was happy to stay with Fox, but there just wasn't a lot of communication there between. And that was kind of a lot of people were talking, and even Aikman came out afterwards saying, "Yeah, I didn't never talk to anybody. I didn't talk to any of the higher ups at Fox, about staying around, getting an extension." But them moving together was kind of surprising. It wasn't much of a shock that Al Michaels went to Amazon, and then obviously with the booth that Fox now has with Burkhart and Olsen. Olsen's going to be kind of a placeholder until Tom Brady retires.
Tom Brady.
And this whole and obviously CBS with their box. This Romo started this whole thing. Romo kind of he quit. He retired, went to CBS. That was a surprise move a few years ago, and he was so great at his job early on that I think that opened the door for a lot of current and soon to be retired players or recently retired players.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think the irony is that Aikman can thank Romo from one former Cowboy to another for the big time payoff there. The reason why I brought you on tonight is, you live in the DC area, Northern Virginia area, where, you cover the Washington Commanders, formerly the football team, and the Redskins, now the Commanders, and they're, the series of dysfunction, I'm a Bears fan. This show is based out of, recorded and produced in Chicago. And we talk a lot of crap about the dysfunctional, the Bears organization under the McCaskies. But I tell you, watching and reading the Reds, the Commanders, I'm sorry. And it's
really hard to break that.
Chicago Bears look, somewhat slightly competent, the Dan Snyder and all the stories. Can you kind of give us an idea where things are? Obviously the article that's been posted on Goodell and Snyder having to appear on a congressional hearing. Why are they appearing in front of a congressional hearing?
Well, this all started. You can go ahead and blame whoever leaked the Gruden emails way back in October. The first story was Wall Street Journal. The second story that ended up getting Gruden fired was in the New York Times. That within days, this congressional committee, the House Oversight Committee, which I cover this committee going way back to the Mitchell Report days with the same committee did the steroid investigation. So totally different members, or maybe one or two members that are still the same, but from 15 or 14 years ago. But so they started looking into the toxic workplace claims, which were awful, and they were, there's still, we never got a written report out of the NFL, and that's what didn't surprise us. But the fact the investigator Beth Wilkinson was asked not to provide the NFL with a written report was pretty shocking. So we don't know exactly everything that that she found, and that hasn't been made public. So now there's a second investigation going on and this started in February, right around the time of the Super Bowl. There was another hearing. There was the first roundtable hearing in front of this committee on this investigation, and there was a new claim made against Dan Snyder that he put his hand on a then team employee, which he denies, called lies. His spokespeople call that outright lies. Is like that was the direct quote there. But from there it went, and we had the story. I heard it. I was at the owners' meetings, and I was digging around on that they kind of shifted towards looking at the financial side of it. And we broke the story about the team allegedly holding back ticket revenue from the league, ticket revenue outside of luxury boxes and outside parking and, obviously concessions. The ticket revenue on the upper and lower bowls has to be shared with the visiting team, a portion of it. And the allegations that Congress got, and then I was able to report out that the team held back some of that. Now we're not talking about a lot of money. We're maybe a few $1 million in the grand scheme of things. It's not that huge. But when you start, when you have this, and then you have the allegations that were made, two prior allegations against Dan Snyder, which he also denied, that direct link that linked him to at least a toxic workplace. That was linked back to him when it came to the videos and other stuff that he also denied. But when you look at that, and then we have 22 plus years as owner, where the team hasn't won. They've had trouble, keeping fans in the stadium. That's probably largely because it's not a winning team. But It's also that Senator didn't develop the land right around the stadium, because he took over the team a couple years after it opened. Jack Kent Cook built that stadium, and there's a lot of issues with where it was built traffic wise, and also how cheaply it was built. And we see now that these pipes are failing and stuff gets on fans, including sewage. It's just, there's been so many black eyes one after the other for the franchise, where it's to the point where now that their stadium proposals are 15,000 or so less seats, because I think they even know that, it's going to be hard to fill up a stadium as big as FedEx Field is now. When they do build this new one. Now you could recoup a lot of that, if not all of it, easily with the luxury suites. But then you have corporate. There's been a lot of these, especially the women who work for the team, have really mounted a PR campaign and targeted the sponsors. And Budweiser left. They didn't cite exactly why, but Budweiser left. FedEx threatened to leave if they didn't change the name of the team. So it's one after the other, and now their stadium deal here in Virginia is dead for this year. Now they could move forward with the privately financed stadium, but they're going to get $1 billion towards a $3 billion new stadium. Now it was down to $300 million in March, and now that bill's not even going to come up for a vote this year. So there's a lot of obstacles right now, and they all kind of point to Dan Snyder and how a lot of people around here feel about him.
Well, obviously with the cheerleading scandal, the ticket fiasco, and all of this, and then if you throw in the Gruden, who apparently was sending emails to, was it Allen?
Bruce Allen. Yeah,
Bruce Allen. Thank you so much, Bruce Allen, former Washington football team president, and then now you throw in all of this. It's just a one massive dysfunctional mess. And obviously, I think in a perfect world, people like Dan Snyder would probably, if he wasn't an owner, he'd probably get his ass booted long time ago. But obviously, that's not how things work in the NFL, unfortunately.
Yeah. But
there have been a lot of rumblings that the NFL owners are finally fed up with Snyder. What are you hearing, and do you really think that Snyder could be forced to sell the team outright, like what we saw with the Jerry Richardson, formerly of the Carolina Panthers, and then if you go to a more well-noted case, Donald Sterling having to force to sell his team? Are we looking that type of situation with the NFL?
One of the odd things I kind of found in reporting out this story, that Jerry Richardson would not have been forced to sell. He would have likely retained the team. He would have, if there could have been a fight, he could have been urged to sell, which I think he may have been behind closed doors. But if he stayed and fought, I really think he would still be the owner right now of the Carolina Panthers. And as bad as allegations were, and you have racism, you have sexual harassment. The people I've talked to think that there was a good chance he could have stayed on. He didn't want to. Obviously, there was so much smoke that he got out and smartly sold his team for a couple $1 billion, a lot more than what he paid the expansion fee for in the 90s. But yeah, there's reports. Obviously around the Super Bowl, the day of the Super Bowl, that Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk reported that there's rumblings, and then you heard about 3 weeks ago, Jared Bell at USA Today, my former coworker, reported that there's some owners even counting votes. From my sources, we're not there yet. I don't even know if we're there to a point where they're going to say, "Hey, Dan, sell the team," because a big thing that what's happened in other sports, and you mentioned Sterling and the Dodgers with McCourt. McCourt was more financial related. Sterling was obviously had many other issues in that. That they don't want to make an example out of Snyder because they don't want to set a precedent. I've been told this multiple sources around the league, ownership in the front offices around the NFL, where it's not that Snyder knows where the skeletons are or anything like that. He may have some secrets, but it's more that they don't want to make an example out of him, over fear, either unjust or real fear, that it could turn around on them in a few years if something happens with their organizations. So more likely he's going to be asked or strongly asked to sell, but we're not even there yet, right? There's so many investigations going on. We got you have the congressional one, you have the attorneys general in Virginia and DC have their investigations going off of what Congress sent to the Federal Trade Commission. We don't know if the Federal Trade Commission is doing an investigation. We don't know if Maryland's doing an investigation, since they were also included in that letter to the Federal Trade Commission that was off of these financial improprieties, these alleged financial improprieties. And then we also have the second investigation by the NFL, this time done by former SEC Chair Mary Jo White, and her investigation is ongoing, and it will cover both the toxic workplace, the allegations, and the latest allegation made against Snyder, as well as the financial part of it that Congress looked into or is looking into.
Mm-hmm. We had JJT on, who's a longtime, beat writer and columnist with the Dallas Morning News, and having covered the Cowboys. One rumor, or maybe you could refute this, is Dan Snyder, you've mentioned, probably have a pretty good, strong ally in Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Is that somewhat Jerry Jones kind of like hold the key to in all of this?
He may. And actually, he was one of the few owners who was openly talking about Dan Snyder at the owners' meetings down in West Palm Beach a couple months ago. You know, I just kind of, I didn't corner him. He was walking out to the valet, and I just kind of started talking to him about it. And he was like, a lot of the thing was because this was right before the Goodell's press conference, and he basically said Dan Snyder, he kind of, when this. Back in July, when they announced the fine against the team was fined $10 million at the end of the first investigation. And he stepped aside on his own. That's what we were told. Now there has been rumors that he was kind of told to step aside and and his wife Tanya became the day-to-day operations head. Now, whether that actually happened or not, that's been debated. But Jerry Jones said he could have been here. He does, he's Tanya's a good replacement for Dan, but Dan had the right to be at the owners' meetings. He has the right to manage the team. And minutes later, Goodell kind of implied that he'd have to have a talk with him before he took over. He kind of regained his day-to-day role with the team, which was kind of very strange. So there's a lot of, I have to like read tea leaves almost for some of this NFL stuff. But yeah, he is a strong ally, and Jerry does hold a lot of a lot of sway with ownership on whether he could save Dan Snyder or not. If these investigations come back and things look bad, I don't think he's going to step in. And if it's some really bad allegations come out and other owners are so upset about it, you need 24 owners to remove somebody, just like how when the Broncos are going to go through this approval process. Rob Walton needs 24 owners to agree that he should have, which it won't be a problem. They've already pretty much vetted him out. So he's going to be the next owner of the Broncos. That'll probably happen probably by the end of July, if not early August. They'll have a special meeting to approve them after the finance committee gives their okay. So that's what you need. Are there 24 owners right now out there to unseat him? And I don't think there's enough out there at this point yet. And there's a lot out there. I think a lot of the fans, think there's plenty. And that's one of the hard things about reporting on this team is every time you report something, they think it's going to be the final nail. It's the final nail. It's going to be no. It's just it takes so much. And I'm not out here to get Dan Snyder or anybody else. I'm just out here to find out what the truth is. And it's a lot harder when everybody has NDAs. So
that's without a doubt. And obviously over the weekend, Jack Del Rio made some crazy comments about the Jan 6 resurrection.
Yeah, right before the hearings, he says this. I'm like, are you? And I've seen him around at bars. I'm not shocked by it at all. And I've seen him around. We probably don't live very far from each other, so I've seen him around. But it's like and people who are around the team know what he's all about. But yeah, I'd call it a dust up right before the video that we all saw from the hearing last week. And it's like, really? And it's like, just all these unforced errors. This team is just, and you have to feel bad for Martin Mayhew and Jason Wright, who are still not, they've been there for over a year now, but Jason's been there for a little longer, but they have to deal with this. They're the GM and the president of the team who are now the new face of this, and they can't even get past it because this stuff happens. And it's like, I feel bad in a way for them because, they signed up for this job knowing probably that this is the environment that they were coming into, but you didn't have to exacerbate it by what Jack Del Rio did.
Absolutely. It's just a toxic environment. And, between Dan Snyder and obviously, probably the way the organization runs is, a reflection of, who the Snyder is truly from, inside and outside, unfortunately. And, we're going to transition over to, Deshaun Watson case for a moment, because I think there's a bit of a correlation, you don't look at the, NFL owners, whether it's, maybe not just in the NFL, but I've kind of gotten the idea, with the Chelsea ownership with the Roman Abramovich, being a Russian oligarch and, stuff like that. It's not exactly, owners are exactly, somebody with strong morality. If you look at the people like Dan Snyder and even, Jerry Jones, who are both probably like two peas in a pod, but, with the Deshaun Watson allegation becoming even worse and worse, and thank God my co-host Kim Fang is not here tonight, unfortunately, because he's a Browns fan and he's obviously a little bit astute about, the whole trade and him facing more allegations. Do you think with the NFL there's a bit of a morality issue, and can Roger Goodell does he have the balls and the leadership to even come up with a right solution or a right punishment for either one of these cases?
Yeah, it's tough. And especially the Deshaun Watson thing it's awful. All these allegations. You have 24. Obviously, Jenny did a great job at the New York Times last week, just detailing there were 66 total massages over, was it a 17-month span? Wow, that was pretty good. 17 months. All right. So yeah, she did a great job with that story, and she's a great reporter. So yeah, and I was actually archiving the first 18, 19, 20 lawsuits, and they were all boilerplate, and I was like, this is very strange. And you have a lawyer, Tony Busby, who's not really, he's accustomed to bluster and accustomed to making noise for his clients, but he's also not a sexual assault or sexual harassment type of attorney who handles this very often. He's a litigator. So it was strange that all the women went to him, and he took these cases on contingency, which means they didn't have to pay up front, where sometimes these cases they require a lot of work. And so I didn't know what to think of it at first. It was all bad, and there had but going through all the first 20, 22 lawsuits, there was probably a few crimes in there. Now, misdemeanor versus felony, that's hard to determine with what that, because all you have is a complaint versus, the police, and then the prosecutors looking at the witness testimony and the witness interviews, actually not testimony, witness interviews. So we don't know. Two grand juries didn't indict him, and then they thought he was free and clear. And you mentioned Schefter earlier. Schefter was probably one of the most, ill-timed tweets of his that he's had of late. When he said it was like, this is why he was basically backing Watson and backing up, that his representation's, view of that these were all just kind of, frivolous lawsuits. But then you have more information. You got a 24th accuser coming out now. You had the Real Sports interview that Soto O'Brien did with a couple of accusers. It just does not look good for the NFL. It does not look good for the Browns, especially that first year contract with the base salary being so low. If he is suspended for a year, he's not going to lose much money. There's no signs that the Browns are going to void this contract. But now the Texans are involved. I mean, the Texans, their head of security, supplied Watson with an NDA, which is to make these women sign. Yeah, I don't know how many women. So a lot of them, a few of them actually did, and that's just that's not a good look. So now the Texans are a co-defendant in these lawsuits, and it's going to go on for a while. And I think the NFL, the investigations are going on for over a year that they've been conducted. They usually wait until after the police or the prosecution have wrapped up their cases, which that's pretty much appears to be done, and that's when they usually hand out or make a determination if there's going to be any punishment, and that hasn't happened. Now, there's probably, because there's more accusers coming out and more information out there. We don't know how many. We know that a few of them have talked to NFL investigators of the accusers, and there's going to be some kind of. I'm expecting some kind of suspension, whether it's several games or a full season. I think that's probably it's looking that way. But it's been a very strange case, and I did some early reporting on it. It's kind of no longer my go-to as far as criminal stuff, like it was at USA Today and elsewhere. But it was. I've been keeping track, and it's not an easy spot to be in, and the Browns made it a lot worse with that contract.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. 5-year, $230, I believe. Is it fully guaranteed?
Oh, if it's not fully, it's most of that money is guaranteed. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. He missed the entire last year, and then he's probably at this rate may miss the entire 2022 as a punishment.
He'll still be 26 and after next season. I mean, after this upcoming season, so he's still going to be a young quarterback. But how much does this tarnish his image? And we broke the story about Apple with Beats Audio dropping him last March or April of 2021. So there was a business side of the story, and then there was the weird part was he had people were reporting sponsors that he had, like Rolex, that were never sponsored him, which is always that was never corrected by his people. So that was kind of funny. But so it's kind of, and you feel bad for the women involved, the accusers. And, if the NFL doesn't take this seriously, it's going to go back to, we're going back to the Ray Rice days. And even before that, when I was in college, a book came out, about all the crimes committed by NFL players. When maybe it was true 20 something years ago. Now the NFL players are actually, they commit crimes at a much lower rate than the rest of society, in a U.S. society. But this is, but having this out there, and especially someone as a marquee player like Deshaun Watson, allegedly doing these things, and whether he has been convicted, he hasn't even been found, liable in court for any of this. So let's put that out there, that these are just allegations at this point. But there's so many allegations that, I had a story last year. It's like that GMs were in team presidents I was talking to were like given pause by just having that. At that time, I knew there were about 40 women that he went to for massages, because Rusty Hardin, his lawyer, provided a list of about 20 names of massage therapists that said good things about him. So, you have a player going to 40 something different massage therapists in a very short time, when the team provides it. The teams have athletic trainers, the teams have their own, as we saw with the New York Times story, the teams have their own massage service, that they go to, and he chose to go on Instagram to find these things.
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about the morality in sports. We talked about Jones and Snyder, and then the Watson. I want to close out this interview. We can't ignore over the weekend about the LIV tournament, the PGA, war, fiasco, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, a lot of big name players have, somewhat defected to LIV tours. The LIV, for those who are not familiar with it, is a new golf alternative / tournament or exhibition at the moment that has been backed by Saudi Arabia government. And if you've been following our show, we've talked about sports whitewashing or
Sports washing.
Sports
washing. Yep, there you go.
Sports washing. Yep. China with the Olympics. Russia oligarchs with the European soccer Premier League.
You got Qatar with the World Cup.
Yeah, that's happening in November instead of June, like what we're supposed to be watching at this point in time. But it's a fine line between wanting to make money, and I get it. We all know the backstory of Mickelson's gambling problem, and we all know we know players want to make more money, and that there's no denying that. It pays much better, of course. Even a mid-level player like Kevin Na or others, Charlie, who ended up jumping ship. You get a lot of money just for even being, for appearing on their tournament, and it's a fine line, drawing a morality and asking, maybe athletes and people like that, to be mindful of what Jamal Khashoggi, now deceased Washington Post writer and a Saudi Arabia journalist. What are your feelings on the LIV tournament, and the bickering that PGA has with their 17 players being completely kicked out? Do you see maybe LIV and the PGA maybe perhaps reaching some sort of a truth or maybe an agreement at some point?
Not anytime soon. Not for the next couple of years. And it was odd. I was actually covering the Gruden hearing a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas, and I ran into somebody who tried to cut in front of me in line. That who ended up working for the LIV Tour. And we had to go back and forth. He was wearing I thought he was wearing an Astros hat, but he wasn't. It was actually it's the minor league team. So we just had it because I'm a Dodger fan, as you can see. So I was it was just kind of he was out there scouting for sites for next year, because they're going to have maybe as 6 to 8 tournaments in the U.S. So they're going to they want to expand much more than their handful of, I think they have 2 or 3 tournaments in the U.S. this year. The first is going to be up in Oregon. And I had to ask the same questions. I was like, "Oh, what about for this? This whole Saudi Arabia. You can say blood money if you want, and may have used that term." And he was like, "What about for China? What about China and and obviously them basically have slave labor for the Muslim population there." When I was like, well, China made my cell phone. They are a trading partner, and I do have issues with China. I think we all should pay closer attention to, civil rights, both in the United States and around the world. And the Uyghurs being basically enslaved is awful. And I think we should, as a country, do as the U.S. do as much as we can to address that. But it's something else when you have a tour doesn't really, just is going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and you have to watch it on YouTube right now. You have to. It's there's no TV partner. That's going to be the next major thing. What's the TV deal going to be internationally and in the U.S.? How much money are they going to get? What's the carriage going to mean? What's the reach going to be? Will the networks want to carry this because of the Khashoggi and everything else? And a lot of people, going back to 9/11, how many of the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia? It is a very hot button issue, as it should be. And Mickelson not answering questions about this. A lot of players don't want to answer questions about the millions that they're getting coming from the head of a country whose civil rights record is so bad. I think that's whether this is going to be, whether people will allow sports washing to happen or will allow this tour to continue without these questions is going to be something you have to keep an eye on, because it's not going to go anywhere if they don't have partnerships with the TV networks, if the fans don't show up to these events. Their biggest win so far is getting Bryson DeChambeau. That was the biggest win, because he's still he's basically in his prime of his career right now, where a lot of these other players like Mickelson and others, and then you see the reports how much they were willing to pay Tiger Woods to come over, which is much more than Phil Mickelson was going to get. Has gotten the $200 million figure that was reported from Mickelson. So that's will the pressure stay on potential sponsors and potential TV partners to distance themselves from the LIV Tour going forward? I think that's going to be that we're watching it at front office sports, and I think a lot of sports fans and those in sports business as well are too.
Well, on that note, we want to thank you, AJ Perez, from the front office sports. We talk about a lot of issues about the sports and morality. There's really no right or wrong answers. Obviously, rich people want to get rich, which obviously they're entitled to, of course. Athletes,
owners, and they want to stay rich. So yeah,
absolutely, and they will bend the rules. They will go, around it, whatever they want to do to, maintain the policies or the power, which is something that I've thought more and more ever since the pandemic and the cracks in the societies that we see and so forth. But it was a great interview, AJ. Thank you so much. I know we've wanted to bring you on for quite a while, and then I know we kind of sidetracked, but if people are interested in following AJ for more of the Commanders news and the dysfunctionality and everything, please follow AJ on Twitter by AJ Perez, one word. And we look forward to having you again on our show, AJ, and down the road. There's more, breaking news regarding the Commanders and the impact it will have on the NFL and so forth. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and I'm glad you liked it down there in Chicago. I saw the storm moving through. I was watching your local CBS affiliate. So.
Well, we're ending the show hopefully without any more problems. But thank you so much. We'll have to have you again soon. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And the AA team will continue in a moment.
Dan, do you prefer the method of having altering?
No, because Mark Trestman did that and Matt Nagy did that, and arguably they're the worst two coaches in the history of the franchise.
You're forgetting John Fox. He squeezes in there, maybe.
Did Fox do that too?
I think so.
Fuck that. Put the C on Fields and leave it there.
Exactly.
And welcome back to the AA team. Final words here. I want to thank Jean-Jacques Taylor from the Dallas Morning News and JJT Media, his own company, as well as AJ Perez from Front Office Sports, joining us to talk about their careers and the sports and morality. I know we had a bit of a technical glitch earlier tonight, and I appreciate the people for sticking around and be patient. And things like this happen. And I'm also thankful that Aldo and those in the Chicago area, hopefully they're not affected too much. And we got to through the show without Ken also, who's dealing with kidney failure himself. Thank you so much, Cliff, for always coming on and be proactively talking to us as well. My name is Stephen Negishi. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We hope to have another great guest to talk about the sports. The NBA finals hopefully will be wrapped up, and we hope to maybe talk more on that side and, the upcoming NBA draft in the offseason. There are a couple of good Asian basketball writers that we have, hopefully either 2 weeks from now or maybe in early July when the free agency begins. And we hope to have a great guest to talk more about it. My name is Stephen Negishi. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the AA Team, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.